Hi, I'm Dan Lagani with Silver Solutions, and welcome to another episode of AgeWise. You know, our goal with AgeWise is to help make you smarter about some of the things that you and your loved ones will need to know and understand as you get older. And today we dig into an interesting alternative to senior living options with our guest, Jake Rothstein. Jake is the founder and CEO of a company called UpsideHōM, and we had a really wide-ranging conversation about the state of senior living care in the United States, where his company fits in, how it complements traditional senior living choices, and even how his grandmother inspired the company. So sit back and enjoy the conversation Jake and I had a couple of weeks back. And if you or your loved ones ever need to consider new living options as you get older, hopefully today's conversation helps make your process a little bit easier. Jake Rothstein, thanks so much for joining us today on AgeWise. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Dan. It's great to be here.
You know, I want to start out with the most fundamental part of what you do. What is UpsideHōM?
Sure. UpsideHōM is building the biggest senior living community in the world without laying a single brick. That's kind of our spiel. And the way we do it is we work with existing infrastructure. So we layer our services on top of existing multifamily infrastructure, sort of inherently intergenerational apartment communities. And then we give our residents and their families a single point of contact to access a variety of services in a really simplified way.
So if I looked at senior living options in the most fundamental way, they range from independent living to assisted living. People that have some form of dementia have memory care options, and of course, the traditionally known nursing home, now called skilled nursing, is what the traditional landscape looks like. Where does UpsideHōM fit into that framework, or does it not fit into it at all?
Yeah, we like to think we're creating a brand new market within the senior living category. So we are targeting the 90% of people that say that they want to age in place, but can't do it. And they can't do it typically because of one of what we've determined to be 5 what we call trigger events. And those trigger events are death, downsizing, divorce, disaster, and disability. And we've sort of grouped versus, I think in traditional senior living, there's a tendency to group older adults by age or by acuity level. We've grouped them by, or it helps, it's been helpful for us to group them by triggering event. What causes them to need to make a move? What gives them this sense of urgency around their housing situation? And so we're, 90% of people say that they want to age in place, but at some point along that aging journey, it really becomes impractical or really impossible to do for a number of reasons. And that's where we're really focused.
I love the way you framed it up with the 5 trigger events. Does age factor in, or do they just happen at different times and different ages for each person?
I'd say the simplest way to answer that is that everybody ages differently. And there's a tremendous amount of nuance in the way people age. And so just to put an example to it, I mean, we have residents that are in their 50s, and we have residents that are in their 90s. And there are people that are still running marathons in their 90s, and there are people that are wheelchair bound in their 60s. So it's really hard to put an age on it, and because everyone ages differently and that progression is different, we don't like to categorize that way. And we are able to, with the flexibility of our model, we're able to cater to a wide variety of ages, a wide variety of acuities, and also a wide variety of people across the financial spectrum. We have a lot of flexibility there as well.
Let's talk a little more about how it actually works. My mom's 86. And we make a decision that she really shouldn't live independently anymore, or she should be in a better, more suitable space because there's stairs in the home that she's in. How does somebody use UpsideHōM to solve for that?
Great question. So our residents and prospects come to us, and we take them through a discovery process. Typically, it's a phone call. Then it's typically followed by a video call. To really understand and get to know our residents and their families and their needs and their desires and their aspirations and the things that they really care about. At that point, we're able to really curate a selection of communities within a specific geography, within a specific price range or price point that people have identified. Then really start that tour process. And that tour process, you can tour 1 unit, you can tour 50 units, and we have a tremendous amount of flexibility as a result of the model in terms of geographic availability and price point availability. So we like to curate typically three properties for people based on the needs that we've discovered in that discovery session, and then start setting up tours for them around those 3 curated properties.
How many communities, how many geographies are you in?
So we're in all of the state of Florida now across 6 or 7 different sort of DMAs or market regions, with thousands and thousands of properties available at any given moment. And so one of the interesting things about our business is that we work with big property managers, and they have thousands and hundreds of thousands of units under management, and those units are changing hands all the time. There's a lot of turnover in traditional multifamily, and so we're capturing that turnover and understanding where our availability is, and that availability changes by the minute.
You know, for the more traditional process of finding the right community-based living option for your loved one, you walk through it, you tour it, you get a sense of the physical space of the community. Is that something that you've worked out how to do within UpsideHōM as well?
Absolutely. It's really important that people get a feel for the community, that they could actually go touch and feel the unit and the community and the common areas and things like that. It's really important that people are feeling comfortable. What we're finding is that people that move in with us don't want to leave, and don't want to move again, quite frankly. When you're moving somewhere at 78 years old, you want this to be the place that you're going to stay the rest of your life. And so people are really thoughtful and deliberate about their decision making when they're moving in with us. And so they want to touch and feel it, and we allow them to do that. But we also make sure that we're making it the most efficient use of their time as well. Older adults sometimes struggle with mobility issues, right? And so getting them to tour 15 different properties is a challenge on their families and for themselves. And so we've enabled a lot of touring to be done virtually as well, so we can take a lot of that travel burden off them, so we can really narrow down the properties that they want to actually physically tour. You
know, the travel burden is one part of it. I think as in the world of Silver Solutions, we see it as our clients get older, their needs change, not only in terms of their physical environments, but the other things that they need help with. The traditional senior living options do offer an array of services. So how do you address that in your business?
Sure. So senior living has done a tremendous job at bringing all the services that an older adult might need under the roofs of their communities. What we've said is that technology over the last 10 years has enabled us to offer a whole host of services around anybody in any type of apartment community setting, and do it in a really simplified way. So we make it really, really easy by putting what we call a home manager between all of these great services that are maybe technology enabled and that older adult resident or their family members themselves. And so it's, we've categorized it into 4 predominant buckets. And that's food, transportation, activities and events, or what we're calling experiences, and of course healthcare services, because as people age, they tend to lean more on the healthcare industry for services either preventative or sort of reactive. And so we work with community partners in all of those all the geographies that we operate in that are vetted and curated by us in order to deliver really high quality services in those 4 categories to our residents, if and only if and when they need them.
Let's talk about the trigger event for you to start UpsideHōM. What was going on in your world that made you say, I've got an idea, and it manifests into the company that you run today?
It was personal. My grandmother had moved my grandfather into a memory care community, and she had been caring for him with his increasing needs as his Alzheimer's progressed. And at some point she just goes, I physically can't do this anymore. She was in her late 80s, probably 86 at the time. And she's like, we gotta find a better solution for him. And so we moved my grandfather into a traditional memory care community locally here by her. And she suddenly found herself completely alone. She had all this purpose for the last 5 or 6 years caring for him. And here she was in this big 2-story house that she was helping him navigate and helping herself navigate for those few years. And she was running out of liquid assets because the cost of this memory care community was quickly eating away at her savings. And she goes, I don't know what to do. And so the family got together and we decided to sell the house because she couldn't navigate it anymore and she couldn't afford it anymore, quite frankly. And we found her a rental apartment in the same community around the corner. So it was near her doctors, and it was near her grandchildren, and it was near her CVS that she got her prescription drugs at, and it was near her bank. and near her friends. And so we're like, okay, this will be really clean and simple. And when she needs to leave the apartment, she can close the door. She doesn't have to worry about maintenance issues. And here I was stepping in to kind of help with all these different services. She didn't like driving at night. Her vision wasn't amazing. Her reaction times weren't amazing either. So she didn't really like driving at night. She didn't really like driving outside a 3-mile radius of the apartment. So I helped her with that. We'd go for family dinners many Friday nights. We'd all meet at my parents' house for dinner. And so I'd come pick her up. I'd take her there. I'd take her home afterwards. And so like these little things that I think that people that are in their middle age take for granted, an older adult has a little bit of trouble with, especially if they're newly finding themselves because of one of these trigger events. The trigger event in this case was moving my grandfather into traditional senior living. She found herself alone, and without the resources to continue to maintain the lifestyle that she was accustomed to maintaining. And so that was really the beginning. And so after a few months of her living in this apartment and me helping out with all these different things, I'm like, oh my God, there must be a lot more people like my grandmother that suddenly just can't do all this stuff. And that was the beginning.
What a great bit of perspective. And like so many good business ideas, they do come from a personal situation. You mentioned cost somewhere along the way. There are options for older adults to use long-term care insurance in different community-based settings. Has that issue been addressed in your business model yet, or is that something that you see a path for in the future?
Yeah, it's something we see a path for in the future, certainly. We're actually starting to talk with some big long-term care insurance providers, starting to understand that, if it makes sense from a policyholder standpoint to keep someone out of much more expensive traditional senior living for as long as possible and to prolong that financial well-being and not have to tap into that long-term care policy or tap into it to extend the runway, so to speak.
What's interesting to me is this is not the first time that you've been involved in a business or a company trying to change or innovate or disrupt the traditional elder care universe. Talk about Papa, which was a prior company of yours that you're still involved with as well.
Yeah, so Papa was also founded on a personal need with that same set of grandparents, as a matter of fact. When my grandfather was first diagnosed with Alzheimer's, in the very early days, my grandmother was struggling to get a break. I remember very vividly after that first diagnosis, she realized she couldn't leave him at all, ever. And that was really hard on her. It was kind of a stark realization that she just couldn't be without him. And she had a very active and engaged social life at the time, and she was 82 at this time, I believe. And her girlfriends would call her up all the time. Hey, her name's Margarita. Margarita, can you come meet me at Starbucks for a half an hour, in a half an hour? Because that's the way, that's the way life works, right? Your friend calls you and you go meet downstairs for a cup of coffee. And so, she would call me every time she needed a little bit of break. Hey, she used to call me Jakey. Hey, Jakey, can you come over and sit with your grandfather for an hour or two? I got to get out of the house. And I did it. And I did it for a while. And it became really cumbersome. And so I remember one day sitting around their kitchen table, actually, with my grandfather. And I don't know what he was doing, but it was just me and him. And I called up a bunch of traditional home care agencies with a simple request, right? Can you send a caregiver to my grandparents' house at a moment's notice? Because my grandmother gets a call from her friends and she needs a little bit of a break. And with that simple request, I got laughed off the phone 5 times. I called 5 different places. I got laughed off the phone. Sorry, we need 20 hours a week commitment. Our caregivers are on set schedules. They need to make a living. This is how it works. And this is in 2014, 2015, as the gig economy started taking off and technology started enabling this on-demand type of economy. And I remember thinking, like, wait a second. There's 20 million college students in the United States. Many of them are looking for extra work on a part-time schedule. And I'm, at this point, relatively recently out of college and could use the extra money as well. And I'm sitting with my grandfather. I'm not really doing much except babysitting. I'm not a caregiver. My grandmother cares for him. And so that was the beginning. I remember calling my cousin Andrew, who is the current CEO of Papa and still running it, and Papa has grown tremendously. And I said, Andrew, there's something here. Let's create the Uber for grandkids. And the two of us came up with it, and we sort of fleshed out the concept a little bit. And started working on it. Fast forward 7 years now, Papa's doing thousands of visits a day across the entire country and really making a huge impact on the lives of caregivers and the people that they love and care for.
Let's go back to UpsideHōM and the challenge that you're solving for. What should everybody who either has an older parent or is getting older themselves and thinking about making a decision on moving to a new space, what are the top 3 things that they should ask when they call UpsideHōM or when they consider any community-based living? What are the things they should be asking to make certain they're making the right decision?
That's a great question. I'd say that, people come to us and they think that they need less than they do. And so what we find is when people move in with us, they lean on us even more than we anticipate for help with little things, help with support type of services. I'd say be really honest with yourself, number one, about the support that you're going to need. Everyone thinks when they're feeling good and they wake up in the morning and they're 78, I feel good today, so I'm probably going to feel good tomorrow. The reality is that as we age, we become kind of more fragile, frankly. And so I think that we need to think about that in the decision-making that we have, especially when it comes to living. Do you want to stay in your home forever, in the home that you raised your kids in? Of course you do. But maybe it's not that practical. So I think that there's a lot of foresight that has to happen and a lot of prior planning. So having these conversations with your family members, the people that are going to help you make these decisions and actually help you make these transitions, is really important. So start thinking. I would encourage people to start thinking about it, because making these big decisions when you're under anxiety and under duress and under stress because of one of these trigger events makes the situation so much more challenging than it otherwise would need to be if you could make these decisions in a cogent, logical, and sort of step-by-step way. So I'd say, there aren't necessarily 3 specific things that I'd say people should be thinking about, but I'd say the one big one is start being thoughtful about aging. It happens to everyone. You're lucky if you get there, honestly. And think about the ways in which you'll need to be supported and where your kids might be able to step in and where they might not want to or be able to step in.
A really great summary on one of the most important decisions that adult children tend to be involved in with their mom or dad or other family members and loved ones. So thanks for framing it up so well. And how should people get in touch with you guys and track your progress?
You can visit us at UpsideHōM.com. That's UpsideHōM without the E.com.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing. Jake Rothstein, the founder and CEO of UpsideHōM, thanks so much for joining us today and for helping to make us all a little bit smarter about the decisions we'll need to better understand as we grow older along with our loved ones. If you like this episode of AgeWise, please share it with a friend. If you want to find other episodes, just go to silversolutions.com and click on the video tab. For all of us here at Silver Solutions, I'm Dan Lagani. Thanks so much. Stay safe and be well.